folks. Shoot your arrows.
Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Woods, touchdown, LA! Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day.
Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. And Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Weddle got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib.
Curley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to Breeze.
Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 200. I cannot believe I'm saying that. That kind of just flew by. But it is episode 200. So with that, of course, I have Alexis Kraft, and Joe Curley comes back on the show. The last time we spoke with him, it was after the Super Bowl. So Joe is back. How are we doing, guys? Thanks so much for joining the show.
Doing very good. I'm glad finally get to meet the full crew now, and looking forward to starting to look at 2019 and learning a new Rams team here.
Yeah, likewise. So excited to finally get to do a show with Joe, and also ready to analyze this new schedule.
Yeah, no, I think it's, first off, I appreciate you both. Obviously, Joe, you carried me throughout the whole regular season last year, and albeit it was tough, the Rams only won, 13 games, but, it was still, obviously, I needed some backup, so I appreciate you. And Alexis, of course, draft season has been something else. We're going to do over 100 interviews with players, so just giving you guys props, obviously, as we are hitting the 200th episode. And, of course, shout out to Blaine Grisak, who was my original co-host, and I love that guy. So, anyway, now on to the schedule. All right, so the first game of the year, the Rams did not get a primetime game, and I'm not complaining. I like being able to, the season starts, and it's Sunday, and I don't have to watch a whole wave of teams before I see my team on Monday. So I'm totally cool with that. What are your guys' thoughts on this game? Quite honestly, I think it's kind of lame playing the Panthers, but that's just me.
Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I agree. I was not exactly excited to see that that's how we opened up the season, but at the same time, I guess, I can't complain that it's a, noon game for me, opening Sunday. So that's kind of nice, like you mentioned, to not have to wait like we used to on Monday Night Football. But, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It's not, a flashy opener by any means, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not a marquee game, and it's also kind of a difficult trip and a difficult opponent. Like, it's not one of the big games. It's obviously not a primetime game, but you're playing in a 10 a.m., as they like to say, body clock game, which they don't like to do. I know Les Snead and Coach McVay have been pushing the league to, make it a rule that, West Coast teams coming east, play at 1 o'clock games, or 1 o'clock body clock, play the 4 o'clock window. So, it's I think it's a underrated kind of tough start where you're playing, Cam Newton's going to be healthy, and, you're playing a team that you don't see a ton of, kind of to start the season. It's kind of tricky. So, and when you take the marquee games that come after that, I think it's going to be a tough September.
Yeah, I look at that game and I'm just kind of like, maybe it's just me being, stubborn coming off the Super Bowl loss, but it's just like the Panthers just don't wow me. I think the NFL did drop the ball here. The Saints did get, I think they got a Monday night game against the Texans. I don't see how in any shape or form that makes any sense. I don't see the rivalry there. I don't see the significance there. Really how they should have done it, in my mind, is they should have opened up, they should really start doing this. They should open up with a doubleheader rematch of the NFC and AFC championship games, if applicable. If the teams don't play each other on the schedule, then you kind of look at, maybe divisional round and stuff like that. To me, I just don't, I like the Steelers and Patriots game. I think that makes a lot of sense for the AFC. But with the Rams and Saints lined up on the schedule to play each other, it doesn't make any logical sense to not put them, in a slot like that to kick off the year, especially when you put them week 2. So we go and the Rams play the Saints week 2 in LA. It is going to be that, obviously nationally televised game, but it's not going to be in a primetime slot. So, what are your takeaways from this? Because, I was a little surprised that this wasn't a primetime game for sure.
It's one of the biggest games of the year. You're coming off, one of the biggest stories of last season was the, obviously the Nickel Roby play, and then you've got the rule change, and the Saints now have lost to the, obviously these teams have played great games the last couple years, and lost the important game the last 2 years. So, it's this is one of the marquee games of the schedule, one of the biggest games of the schedule, and the fact that it's in September, real early in the year, is kind of disappointing. You'd love those teams to be this game to be, and from a neutral perspective, to be in November or December, where it's possibly deciding, playoff situation.
Yeah, I was very shocked that this was not a primetime game. It's going to be a game that a lot of people are going to tune into, and Rams and Saints fans alike, but also I think people all over the country, because of what happened in the NFC Championship between the two teams and the call and all the controversy and all the drama. I think the NFL kind of dropped the ball by not making this a primetime game. I think it would have been a perfect Sunday night game or even a perfect Monday night game. So I was shocked to see that this kind of just got pushed into week 2, slot, but I'm excited to watch it because I know that the Saints are going to come out with a burning desire to absolutely obliterate the Rams, and the Rams are obviously going to come out with something to prove as well. So, yeah, shocked it wasn't in primetime.
Yeah, I was shocked. It seemed to me like the NFL got free publicity just off that call because people were still talking about that after the Super Bowl. So, it's one of those things where it was just like it was right there for the taking, and you just kind of blew it. But they did that.
Jake, the other part about having that early in the year is that that's still a story. If you bury that game where it belongs after Thanksgiving, you will have gone an entire year, and it's not a biggest story. The fact that it's the second week, maybe that's why it's so early, is that the NFL is looking to keep that a story. So anyway, sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's kind of my confusion. So you're recognizing that, yes, we got to get this thing out there. It's, one of the biggest stories of the offseason, but you're not making it a primetime game, and at the same time, you're not even making it like the start of the season. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the Texans and Saints just blows my mind with how, like, idiotic of a game that is. That does not make any sense. But next week, you look at the Sunday Night Football slot, and the Rams have not won on Sunday Night Football in I don't even know how long. They really don't do well on Sunday Night Football, but they will be playing the Cleveland Browns, and this is the funniest game ever because we're in 2019, and the Browns are a Super Bowl contender, and the Rams have just, they just went to the Super Bowl. So obviously, if you went back to 2009, you went back in time, and you told somebody that, they might have laughed at you because I'm pretty sure the Rams were playing the Browns in 2009 with like A.J. Feely at quarterback. So they go from being kind of two laughingstock teams to kind of the future of the league, and it's a great showcase early on in the year. The NFL did this kind of similarly, not with the Sunday Night Football, but with the Thursday Night Football. They did, I believe, week 4 in Los Angeles against Minnesota. And Minnesota didn't end up really holding their end of the bargain because they didn't make the playoffs. But coming in, that was a really highly anticipated game. And that game, I think, did really well on Thursday night. I think this is going to be one of the highlights of the season for sure.
It's so funny because the guy, a lot of the guys I know from the Conejo Valley Rams group had picked that Cleveland game as their annual road trip. And when I first heard this last year, I was like, why Cleveland? I've actually been to the new Cleveland Stadium, or now it's like 15 years old or whatever. But and it's nice. It's a great venue, and obviously, you're going to Ohio, you're going to a football place, and it's a classic place. But one of the underrated storylines of that week, obviously, you're going to have OBJ, and that's going to be the big storyline and how they're doing to start. But this is the Rams going back to their birthplace. This is the Rams going back. I wonder how many Cleveland fans are still really mad that that the Rams left them as when they were NFL champions way back when. So I know I've actually met a Cleveland fan who was a Rams fan back in the day when they moved from Cleveland to Los Angeles. And what was it, 1945 or something? But that's kind of, maybe that's why those guys are making that trek, because it's going back to the birthplace.
Yeah, this is actually a game that I believe I will be at as well. Cleveland isn't too far from where I live, and it's a Sunday night football game. Cleveland is going to be a lot different, I think, this year than they were last year, and a big part of that is because of OBJ. And I'm excited to see what that offense does with Baker, OBJ, Juice Landry, Nick Chubb, Njoku, among others. And I think it's actually going to be a pretty good game. I would expect the Rams to win, but I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be one a lot of people are going to watch, and I'm excited because I think I'm going to be there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to try and go to every game the Rams play in the AFC this year. So Pittsburgh is a definite. We'll get into that later on. Pittsburgh is a definite because of the family connections that I have. Obviously, half of my family is like Steelers fans, so that makes a lot of sense. Cleveland's not far, and I have family in Cleveland, so you could make like a cool trip out of that. And then the
London.
Ravens, obviously they're not far, so I'd want to try that for sure. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so moving on to the fourth game. We won't really talk too much into this because it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams pretty much always. It seems like they play Tampa Bay a lot, honestly, and it's always at the beginning, the first quarter of their, their schedule. Now, this is a little different team. Obviously it's a little interesting because Bruce Arians is now the head coach of the Buccaneers. And I find that interesting because I think this is going to be a different Buccaneers team. In the past they've brought in guys like Dirk Cutter. And I've never really been a Dirk Cutter fan. I did really like Lovie Smith, and I think he had a plan, but they weren't willing to wait for him. And he really never got his personnel in order. Now, Jameis Winston is somebody that has been kind of under the microscope. Will they get rid of him? Will they not? And, of course, what remains to be seen is the draft. Like, will they, go out and draft somebody like Haskins? We don't know. But as of right now, it sounds to me like Winston is going to be the guy. It sounds to me like Arians wants to bring him in and, wants to develop him and believes in him. So with that being said, I think, Tampa Bay has some interesting pieces there. And I think, obviously with an early draft pick, you could be looking at a big-time player, maybe an Ed Oliver on that team. And they're looking to possibly trade Gerald McCoy. So who knows if they get another first-round pick. So, with that, I think this game's interesting. I wouldn't call it a trap game. I wouldn't call it really anything other than it's interesting. You don't know what the Bucs are going to be. It doesn't flash on the schedule, but when you really think about it, the Bucs are kind of an interesting opponent to be facing early on in the year.
Yeah, you don't really think much of this game, honestly. I think it's just another game. I think it'll be one that the Rams should win. But again, as you said, it could be an interesting Tampa Bay team. So who knows?
I think it's interesting. The Rams get through September. Basically, we'll know where they stand in the NFC South because the three of the four NFC South games are in September, and no divisional games through that first month. And I just think it's kind of an odd first month when you're talking about the long trip to Carolina, followed by two marquee games, and then kind of that sneaky little Tampa game. Oh, that's at home too. The whole against a familiar foe, somebody that knows you well, and having to deal with Jameis Winston. We'll see what he looks like in this new system, but certainly, kind of an interesting first month for sure.
Yeah, and then going right into week 5, we have our second primetime game, Thursday Night Football, which the Rams always make Thursday Night Football exciting. You talk about the Minnesota game, and obviously when they played Tampa Bay when that Star Wars movie came out, and I think there's another one, the 49er game. So they always make Thursday night interesting no matter what roster they have, and I think this Seahawks game is interesting because I think while people are so quick to, put the 49ers in that, second place role, the 49ers have yet to take over that role. Now, hear me out. Obviously, with the injuries, I get it. Garoppolo, and they had a hard time. They drafted Dante Pettis, in the second round, and he had a hard time staying healthy. Garcon didn't work out as the signing. And Marquise Goodwin, who they gave a lot of money to, also, was battling injury. They had injuries on the other side of the ball as well. But this is still a team that, it's going to be put up or shut up time, like Joe says about Tyler Higbee. But, I mean, It really is because, if the 49ers don't start, doing something, it's going to be Seahawks and Rams, and then maybe, Arizona catches up. But this game is interesting because it's a division game. It's a Thursday Night Football game, and notice now that the Rams have established themselves as the top team in their division, now they're not getting stuck playing in Seattle, late in the season. This is an early Week 5 game in Seattle. So I like this, and I think it's definitely a good move to have that on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, Seattle played them tough last year too. How many times did you and I both last year try to kind of dig, throw dirt on that team and say they were done, and certainly they played two really exciting, really good games, and we were kind of wary of having to see them in that first playoff game if that shook out that way. So certainly Seattle did a really good job bouncing back and playing up there on Thursday night. Brings back memories of one of Jared Goff's first starts, right? So certainly. Not the easiest opening divisional game for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's odd that it takes to week 5 for us to even have a divisional game. Usually you see us play one of the NFC West teams within the first couple weeks. But I think I'm excited for that game. I think going to play in Seattle anytime is always a challenge. The fans up there are great. It's always loud, and to put it in primetime TV on Thursday night, I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But as Joe mentioned, Seattle is it's a team that you aren't really sure what you're going to get. You're either kind of worried to play against them or you're not worried, and so I'm not sure what I think about that yet. But I am excited to watch that game, and I think it's a good slot.
Yeah, and I'll add this to it. That game had a potential to be a total snooze fest, but Russell Wilson got the bag, and he signed. And Russell Wilson, as long as he's on that team has a shot. So that's all I really have to say, left over with Seattle. But then moving on, week 6, the Rams go back to L.A., and they play the San Francisco 49ers first time in the season. And this is likely going to be a Jared Goff versus Jimmy Garoppolo matchup, assuming Garoppolo doesn't go down with another injury or anything like that. And it was early in the year, so I think he will be healthy and will be back. But, really, I think it's going to say a lot about both teams. If the Rams blow out the 49ers, the 49ers are in some serious trouble. But, this could be one of those close games. This could, look like a throwback with, you have obviously the bright, blue and yellow uniforms at the Coliseum going up against, the 49ers. It's like that, it screams throwback. So it'll be an interesting game, in that sense. And again, like Alexis said, it's kind of weird. The Rams have always had either week 1 or week 2. They have always had a game against a division opponent, and this year it's 5 and 6. So kind of a weird setup. But I don't mind that on the schedule. I think, obviously October 3rd, October 13th, Seattle and San Francisco. I like that.
The whole thing is kind of a departure, from the last couple of years. 2 of the first 3 years since they've been back to LA, they play on that Monday night, or is it 3 of it? They play on that Monday night to start the year up at Oakland, up at San Francisco, right? 2 of the last 3 years. And then, they played Seattle. They started, the Fisher year here was back-to-back divisional games, Niners, Seahawks to start. There was a Niner game in September 2 years ago. Last year you had Arizona the second week of the season. So, just to confirm that is indeed a big, change from previous years, not having a divisional game in September. So, and the thing about it is this Niner game, it's also flip-flop. There's every year since they've been back in LA, they're playing the Niners in San Francisco early in the season or earlier, and then home in the holiday, finishing up the season with the Niners. Now this year it's going to be flip-flopped. You're going to be home against the Niners earlier in the year and then have to go up there later in the year. And maybe that, with the Niners maybe being competitive, if Garoppolo comes back and he's fine, you're going to be adding a pass rusher, right? To it off the draft. We'll see. It's obviously a big draft for
the
Niners,
Ford.
a big year. Yeah, so we talked last year about potentially the Niners making the step up and being competitive in this division with the Rams, and certainly they're going to have an influx of talent, and certainly it's like you said, kind of going to be a huge year for Jimmy G and that whole group. What's Kyle Shanahan's third year now. They're going to want to see some return on that investment. There's going to be some pressure. They're going to have to win. And so, having that game early in the year too, in the first half of the year, like we said, big change. A lot of different, and one thing we haven't mentioned so far too, there's going to be a lot of questions early in the season. You're the team that lost the Super Bowl. A lot of people are going to be taking kind of temperature of where the team's at. Is there a Super Bowl hangover? What the team looks like in the first, 4 to 6 weeks. Is this a team that's going to continue to win like a lot of people think? Or is this a team where, there's going to be some, did February kind of take a chunk out of them? And this is when, the team's going to have to show that they, that they're going to build on last year rather than have it take energy out of their sails.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch, the 49ers this year and season, because I just think that there is, I think, kind of a culture change going on there right now. I think that they're on the rise. I think a large part of their success, though, as Jake kind of mentioned earlier, is going to be dependent on if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy and if he's playing. I'm curious to see how it turns out. I mean, my assumption is going to be that the Rams would win pretty easily, but I mean, you never know. I mean, San Francisco's a team that I wouldn't be shocked if they came out this season and kind of blew people away and played a lot better than we all think they are.
Yeah, they've got to be one of the best teams in the NFC this year, or things have got to change and it's going to be a failure. They're going to have some pressure on them.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. Like, say they have another bad year. Do you fire Kyle Shanahan? Like, how long of a leash does Kyle Shanahan get? I mean, do you throw away last year, with the injury? I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's like you don't
And
want
when
to.
do the guarantees? When do the guarantees with Jimmy G finish? When
Yeah.
does that become a question?
Well,
If he doesn't go out. Yeah,
that's the scariest thing about running an organization like that, because it's like you don't want to be making these decisions. You don't even want to be discussing this, because then it gets a little hairy, and then you have to make the tough decision. Sometimes you end up regretting that decision. But the next game is the Atlanta Falcons. Shout out to them, rather their social media, because they took it to another level with their schedule, the video, the Game of Thrones themed. They took shots at the Saints, which I think now, like, Rams fans respect the Falcons. And it's kind of funny because this is the same team that knocked him out the first year with Sean McVay. And, you had the whole magical season. And did it feel like it was too early? Yes. But at the same time, it just didn't seem right to lose to the Falcons, especially the way they did. But, I mean, the Falcons been the team. I know, obviously, their rival is the Saints, but, I mean, they've kind of took the Rams back here, and it's, the video definitely says that as well.
Yeah, I really liked the video. I thought that was genius. I thought it was really well done. Mostly the Rams, the little part in there about the Rams and the Saints, I thought was kind of funny.
Right.
But I just thought overall that the video was really good. I mean, I love Game of Thrones, so maybe I'm biased, but I thought it was really clever.
Yeah, I'm a big Game of Thrones guy too, so I thought it was, not only was it a good idea, but it was really well executed. And somebody was joking that whoever made that video should get get hired to do the open for the Game of Thrones HBO spinoff when they do that in a couple of years. I mean, it was really well done, and it was funny. It's one thing to just copy a concept. It's another thing to put your own stamp on it and build on it, and and make it its own kind of entertaining piece. So, and it was really timely, obviously, with the first. Obviously, why they did it with the first episode of the last season coming out. So, just really good idea, well executed, which is better than maybe some of these other teams did.
Yeah, and let's just take a moment to shout out. I guess you guys. I mean, I didn't know anything about whatever. I already forgot what it was.
ASMR.
Yeah, ASMR. The Cowboys had honestly one of the creepiest videos I've ever seen. I swear to you, Amari Cooper was demanding a trade after that video. I mean, he did not look interested in it. And then, of course, as the video goes on, you're like, all right, well, he gets to cook whatever he's cooking. And I guess, I don't know. It was very odd. Like, the touching of the Lombardi trophy, like the tapping of it was just weird. And, petting a plush doll of like a ram, just.
Somebody had told me that the Cowboys did this weird thing with a Rams plush toy, and I'm like, well, why? And then when I finally saw the video, I was like, oh my god, that's genius. I would love a behind the music sort of documentary on how they convinced Amari Cooper to do that, and if maybe that was his idea, because he didn't seem bought in, but he did such a good job. And then the Jerry Jones opening and closing is just
it was very cringeworthy.
Oh my god, it was totally cringeworthy, but it was just nails, man. It was just, I don't know. What did you think, Alan?
I thought it was hilarious. I love ASMR videos, and I thought it was good marketing. Well, it's good marketing. I think it's funny and
it was new.
It's new, and I love seeing how these teams, had different ways of doing their schedule releases, and it's always fun to see how people handle the creative aspect of social media. And the whole goal is really to go viral, right? So people are trying to, think of outside the box, think of things to do. I thought it was funny. the Chargers, not their schedule release video, but they did something today, which I've seen. It's kind of been a trend, so I can't give the credit to them, but they did it pretty well. Was their opponents as Pop-Tarts? I don't know if you guys saw that.
I didn't see that. No.
They tweeted pictures. They tweeted pictures of their opponent, like someone on their opposing team. I can pull it up real quick.
And what Pop-Tart flavor they would be? I saw the one. There was the one with Ben. There was the one with Ben as Dunkin' Donuts drinks. What was what's his name? Anyway, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about because I've seen it done in other ways. But yeah, let me go on that too.
Yeah, it was funny. They had the Packers, and then as Pop-Tart, they literally had Pop-Tarts with melted cheese over it. And they just like, they did a good job. I thought it was really funny. And, it's just fun to see teams kind of do their own thing. But then in regards to just the Rams-Falcons game, it's funny. I have a lot of friends who are Falcons fans.
Frosted water?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the Dolphins.
I mean, it was a good, give the Chargers credit. I mean, it was a good thread and it was funny, but all my friends who are Falcons fans are pretty defensive over the Rams-Falcons game because they really think that the Falcons, it's their year. So we'll see.
Frosted Caesar salad.
Yeah, I think Falcons is going to be an interesting game. Certainly the memory of that playoff game a couple of years ago, and I think that's kind of a seminal moment, of the McVay era because it was, that young team getting a lesson, and part of the reason why you think the last 2 years they've gotten older and more experienced, why they've gone out into the market and tried to get similar players like the ones they lost to 2 years ago. So I think that was a key kind of moment in the McVay era, and then and they're always fun. The Falcons are a good team and they're well coached, and so we'll that's another one of the games. It's funny playing the NFC South schedule and just how all four of those teams are pretty interesting opponents, and I think it kind of it's part of what makes the schedule pop because there are some holes in the schedule because the rest of the NFC West is maybe down.
Yeah, and it's you kind of get all of these tiebreaker opportunities out of the way early on, and in a case of with the season being grueling and everything, and injuries coming up more frequently towards the end of the year, it actually bodes extremely well for the Rams. I think it's also really good matchup, really good opportunity against the Falcons, who have more of a new age defense that they saw with the Dallas Cowboys, who they ran all over in the playoffs. But the Falcons, they they're gonna be healthy. Keanu Neal's gonna be back. Deion Jones is gonna be back. So I think that's definitely gonna be an interesting one. But moving on, we have the Zach Taylor Bowl.
Which is they didn't mention it in the video.
In London.
I just checked it.
That'll be something. But I honestly don't mind them playing in London. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, I'm kind of tired of it at this point. But the interesting thing is in the Rams, we were speaking about the social media releases. In their what is now a 3-year tradition, the Les Snead Bowl sort of, that whole thing is interesting. No Demoff in this episode, but they ignored Zach Taylor. They didn't mention Zach Taylor in the video.
Yeah,
so I don't know what that means.
Honestly,
it's like a layup. Zach Taylor Bowl. We got a Les Snead Bowl. We got an Eric Weddle Bowl. No Zach Taylor Bowl.
Interesting.
I think maybe that's something to bring up.
Maybe some stuff happened behind closed doors. Who knows?
Or maybe some selective editing. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I don't really mind the London game, to be honest. I mean, I think the Rams are there quite a bit. So, I think it'd be cool to maybe give other teams a shot. But then I guess you can look at the argument that like the teams that go over there do get exposure to the fans over there, and people become fans of the Rams in the UK and that type of thing. So I'm sure that from a business and marketing standpoint, it's good for them.
Well, it's the last year. It's the end of the tradition, right? Because now they'll be in the Inglewood, and because of what happened last year, they didn't have an international game, and they went to the Super Bowl. So I do think it takes something out of you to have an international game, but certainly it takes a ton out of you if you're an LA team going all the way to London. That's for as someone who's made that trek. It's not easy.
Unless you get to play Andy Dalton, then
and Zach Taylor.
Yeah, well, I like Zach Taylor, but I mean they're going ahead with Andy Dalton, and to me, I feel like bad because I feel like I'm crapping on the guy, but I just don't understand how the Bengals could be so anti, moving on from Andy Dalton when his cap number was pretty easy to cut. They would have saved $14 million in cap, no penalty. And, if your goal is to win a Super Bowl, why is Andy Dalton your starting quarterback?
Well, I think
that can't be your goal. Your goal is not to win a Super Bowl. That's
exactly.
It's that
They're
simple.
the Bengals.
Yeah.
Their goal is to make money. Let's be honest.
Mike Brown. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why Marvin Lewis was there so long and he didn't even win a playoff game. But I actually gotta say I like the strategically placed Week 9 bye after London. Obviously it's the NFL. Like, you're scratching our back by going out there and promoting our brand, and so we'll scratch yours by giving you the week off after you come back from London. And I always liked that, because in a way, you talk about the NFL and you talk about how there's 8 home games, 8 away games. It's like essentially this whole London, as much as I like it, because I like, obviously it helps our brand as well because, they're more Rams fans now because they're going out there and they're winning. But, really, if you think about it, the teams that go to London are like, it's a select few of teams. Those are the teams that already in a ridiculously hard-nosed, NFL league with tons of parity and, obvious, things will happen. It's only 16 games, do or die. In such a short season that every game means so much, you're sacrificing a home game. So you're openly giving up, not even an advantage, what makes everything even. So you're now giving yourself a disadvantage openly. So that's always something that was really bizarre to me. So, it makes total sense that you would get to, really pick your bye and have it right after that, that game. But I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it, because some people are like, well, there shouldn't be, bye just given, to kind of, give to these teams that, just because they play in London, in the week after, they should just have to play, a normal. I'm like, but, at the same time, they're also kind of taking away, an even thing and putting themselves in a disadvantage. So I guess it kind of goes both ways.
For sure.
Yeah, you got to have the bye, just for player safety and for travel. And, I think it works out really good. And certainly for marketing. But, that thing gives me a headache because, the NFL schedule, I don't think fans understand that, so much of the results of a season are based on, your opponents. With baseball, which is on an unbalanced schedule now, you're playing 162 games. Everyone wins between 40 and 60% of their games. And, hockey and basketball, there's everything kind of, evens out over the course of a season. NFL, you're only playing 16 games and no one's playing the same schedule. So it's inherently an unfair season, an unfair competition. And then you throw in where you're asking an X amount of your teams to give up home. Obviously to me, it just gives me a headache, but it's more, it's a money making operation, and they're promoting their brand, and certain things are more important than having an even playing field. But I don't like it, but it's not the.
I mean, baseball does that.
Doesn't matter.
62 game season, so.
Yeah. So it's just not as a big deal,
Yeah.
But to me, I'm a soccer guy. You play. There's a big saying. There's a saying in soccer that there's no better way to determine a champion than playing basically a league season, which is everyone home and away. When the English Premier League a couple years ago tried to add an extra game played in America that would unbalance the schedule, they freaked out and revolted in England because it was going to unbalance the schedule and ruin the perfect nature of the league. So anyway, not to go off on a rant and keep you guys up, but certainly not something that I like.
Yeah, I totally hear you though. I mean, like the NBA does like their preseason, tour as they call it, but never in the regular season. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of going back on how I'm okay with I like when they play in London, but I mean for the players and everything, it kind of sucks. But this is kind of around that time. Or we're getting to that time. Okay, so we're at week 10. And week 10 here, we had the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think, the history, these two teams met in a Super Bowl. I definitely I actually 100% believe this should have been a primetime game. I'm glad it's not because it makes traveling, because I plan on going to this game with my cousins, so much easier. I don't have to take off 2 days from work or whatever. So that's cool. But realistically, with the history between these two teams, and obviously like Kevin Green, that whole bad blood thing now that like he didn't play the majority of his, career he played the majority of his career with the Rams. He goes to the Steelers for 3 years. Now he says he's a lifelong Steeler. So, it kind of, there's some bad blood there, but I think that would have been a nice primetime game, and I don't know. I think they kind of dropped the ball on that. I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad they did. But week 10 is going to be interesting because keep this in mind: the Steelers have an older quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. It's not all the way at the end of the year to the point where he's kind of wearing down a little bit. The Steelers are going to have enough time to kind of figure out what team they are before this game. And this game could be huge. This could be like the Saints-Steelers game this year when you saw two teams that were playing for everything. I think it could be that type of game because the Steelers early on in the year might be an easier team to beat. Like the Patriots might not have an issue because they're a team trying to find, their stride. This is a defense that's going to be revamped in the draft. I mean, Keith Butler's on thin ice, their defensive coordinator, and they didn't make the playoffs last year. So I think this week 10 placement is probably one of the only disservices, if you will, for the Rams on this, because I think the Steelers are going to be at their best.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good game. I think the Steelers are going to be a lot better this upcoming season than people think that they're going to be. And I'm excited for it. I really like, anytime the Rams play the Steelers because I think the Steelers have a really fun fan base and a really fun atmosphere at Heinz Field. And, I think it'll just be fun to watch. And the placement of it, like you said, I think is going to be right in the Steelers' kind of prime of their season.
Yeah, one interesting aspect of this to me is that the Steelers, after years and years and years of being competitive, is this the year that the bottom falls out with, no Bell, no Brown, a transitional year, maybe pressure on them to keep it going, all the controversy of the last couple of years. So, like you said, coming off a non-playoff season, is there going to be pressure on them? And I think I just saw some projections of them looking like a 7-win team. So, we'll see. It certainly could be a memorable moment if the Rams go and get revenge from that Super Bowl loss, go back to Heinz Field and beat them. And, that's certainly one of the games where I think a lot of Rams fans are going to make that trip like you guys and potentially have some fond memories of Heinz Field.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I definitely want to go to that game, and my cousins that are Steelers fans, I think it'd be fun to watch the Rams kick their Steelers butt. But moving on to Week 11 is the Sunday Night Football game against Chicago, and I know there were a collective amount of groans from Rams fans, like, oh boy, that brings back good memories, but. Fear not, the Rams don't play the Eagles this year, so that's good since the Rams can't beat the Eagles no matter where they play. But with that being said, Chicago is a team that, even though they shut down the Rams' offense, they didn't really have much of an offense of their own, and that game was pitiful. It was like 15-9. So in this one, this is a Sunday Night Football game. This is going to be in Los Angeles. This isn't going to be in, the cold weather, windy city, Chicago. This is going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be a November game, and it's going to be on Sunday Night Football in a rematch. And I'll tell you right now, I think Chicago is going to take a step back this year. I think Nagy is getting a ton of credit, and totally understand it. But Nagy's not the next Sean McVay. I think that's where people are going to, kind of fall and realize how good Sean McVay really is. Nagy is good, but when you have somebody like Vic Fangio that is just a total schemer as a defensive coordinator, and you now have him go to the Broncos, he's now going to be their head coach. I don't know if he's going to work out, but I don't think that Chuck Pagano, who kind of spent some time away from the league after his run with the Colts, I don't think he is going to work out immediately. He could come back and be just as good as he was with Baltimore, but I don't see it happening immediately. They lost Adrian Amos in the free agency, so I don't see the Bears' defense that got better. I see them that maybe they stayed the same or got worse, arguably. And I don't think people are realizing how important Vic Fangio was for that defense. So with that being said, I don't think that they have the formula to stop the Rams' offense. And so I think that this game might not be as, competitive as the last game. I don't think that, the Bears are going to be that tough. I think they take a step back this year. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I'm excited for it. My whole one side of my family is all Bears fans, so I always love to watch the Bears, and I just think it's going to be a good game, as you mentioned. The Bears are. I don't know if they're there yet. They're certainly a good team. They could come out and surprise me and absolutely ball out this season. But I think that defensively, it's going to be probably another defensive matchup between our defense and their defense. And I'm excited for it. I like that it's in prime time, and I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, this is this is the beginning of the real meat of the schedule. You've got 3 primetime games in 4 weeks, then the Cowboys game. So, this is kind of obviously the television execs expect, the Rams to be one of the best teams in the NFC and expect them to be playing for stuff going down the stretch. So, this will be one of the biggest games of the season. You guys who have been listening to this know that I'm not a big Mitch Trubisky guy. I think that's maybe the only thing holding back that team. Certainly you lose your defensive coordinator. That's a big blow, but the talent on that defense is part of the reason why, they're so great, and they were able to do such a good job, and the weather, they're able to do such a good job on Jared and Sean in the offense last year. So, it's certainly one of the marquee games of the year, coming back after the Pittsburgh game, playing on Sunday Night Football, welcoming the Bears. I'm sure it'll be one of the bigger crowds, one of those split crowds, certainly like we saw in the Packer game last year. I'm sure there's going to be to see how many, Chicago fans there are, in Southern California. So, certainly when the Cubs are in town at Dodger Stadium, there's a ton of Cub fans. So I'm sure it'll be a pretty, good atmosphere on Sunday night. And I'm sure the Rams are going to want to win that game just based on the disappointment of last year.
Yeah, and then moving on, we have week 12, and this is around the time you would have the Thanksgiving game, and there was a lot of buzz that the Rams were playing the Cowboys. The Cowboys,
yeah, that was weird.
Have the Thanksgiving, and then the Rams would get that game, and people were really excited. I think the NFL totally dropped the ball because they put the Bills. Now, like the Bills, just there's not really much exciting there, because when you talk about Thanksgiving games, you want like excitement. Obviously, you want storylines. Cowboys Giants, it's a pretty easy one. When the Giants are decent, the Cowboys are decent. You have a stable rivalry. You have established quarterbacks in Tony Romo and Eli Manning. And now it's kind of like, the Giants, we don't know where they are, so they didn't get the nod. And it's the Bills who, they have Josh Allen, and I would make the argument their defense has some pieces, but like I don't really think the Bills are going to be that great. So I don't really understand it. I think
they're the Bills.
Yeah, well,
they're the Bills.
It's just
come on.
I was just trying to be nice, but I don't get it at all. I mean, quite honestly,
we don't have to be nice. They're the Bills. Blaine had it right. Do you remember what Blaine said today? He goes, "People have to take their naps at some point on Thanksgiving Day, and it's going to be when the Bills are on TV." And the interesting thing is the other two games in that day, are unchanged. It's Falcons Saints, right? And the early game was Lions Bears, right?
Detroit.
I mean, Lions, Lions, Bears, Falcons, Saints, two great games, two rivalries. And then can you imagine that day if you had Rams, Cowboys in the middle of those other two games? That would have been one of the biggest days of football.
It just, I don't see the relevance of Bills, Cowboys.
I'm going to have to figure out, when was the last time the Bills played on Thanksgiving?
I mean, they played in the Super Bowl against
the Leon
each
Lett
other,
game.
Right?
Oh, that's true.
So I guess maybe that's where they're going with that. But I mean, I would have much rather seen a divisional NFC, divisional round, rematch, or I would have rather seen. Talk about the Bills. If we're playing that division, why wasn't it Cowboys Patriots? The Bills?
No, it's got to be the Cowboys. But I guarantee you, if we looked at the Cowboys schedule right now and we ranked them 1 to 16, the Bills game would be one of the weakest matchups.
And I just don't get it because it's like that you're asking 3 games, which is, I mean, that's a total of 6 teams. You're asking 6 teams to really pick up the pace and be able to entertain a Thanksgiving audience. And it's a big spot. It's not prime time, but I mean, there's one prime time game, but I mean, it's nationally televised and it has a lot to do with the holiday. So Bills Cowboys is just mind boggling to me, but
1994 was the last time the Bills played on Thanksgiving.
But I mean, the Rams do have a game November 25th, week 12, and it is a Monday Night Football game showcasing Jared Goff versus Lamar Jackson. Teams that actually had they had that dual training camp, and so that's I find that interesting that they had that. They met in the preseason last year as well. So this year they get each other on a Week 12 Monday Night Football game. Kind of weird that they chose the Ravens, but at the same time, you notice a pattern here. The teams that the Rams are playing on primetime are against young quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield. Russell Wilson, obviously not young, but not old. Mitch Trubisky, Lamar Jackson. So,
good call.
So, I mean, maybe that's where they were going with that. There's no Ben Roethlisberger. I'm surprised maybe no Jimmy G. Maybe that's why they didn't go Drew Brees, since it was so obvious to... Yeah, I don't know, but I did notice that. So I really respect the Ravens. I think that they're going in the right direction, and I think it's going to be a good matchup for sure. But back-to-back Rams home games, prime time, that's something else. That's what we call, you went to the Super Bowl, you represent the NFC, here's a little gift for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. I like this matchup because it's kind of different. It spices it up a little bit. Rams, Ravens, Monday Night Football. I like it. I think it's different, and I think the Ravens are on the up and up.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Going to be fun seeing the Rams are now a veteran defense, right? With Weddle and Matthews, and they've evolved. With the back-to-back NFL player, defensive player of the year, they're now a veteran defense. Talib and Peters, and we'll see what that looks like. But to have those young quarterbacks going up against a veteran defense, certainly that'll be a storyline that will keep those guys busy on those Sunday and Monday nights.
Yeah, exactly. And then week 13, the Rams play the Cardinals for the first time in the season, and that's bizarre. Sean McVay goes against his buddy that he pulled a prank on, the tampering prank. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but with Cliff Kingsbury.
April Fools.
That was something else. That was funny. But yeah, I mean, this could be Kyler Murray versus, or it could be Josh Rosen. But right now, if I were to bet, I would probably lean towards Kyler Murray versus Jared Goff, and kind of wondering why they didn't make one of these. They went with Seattle, the double dip. Like, Seattle will not be a regular game. They're both prime time. So I'm a little surprised they didn't do that with the 49ers or the Cardinals, seeing as you could have had Goff versus Jimmy G, or you could have had Goff versus Kyler Murray or Josh Rosen. So, I don't know. This is kind of a weird placement. You normally don't wait until week 13 to play a division rival, but they have been doing that a little bit. I did notice, last year, I think it was the Saints. They played Carolina back-to-back, or close to it. I think it was one game, and then there was a game in between, and then the next game. It was bizarre, but I mean, I guess they're getting different with these schedules. But
suboptimal is the term for that. Suboptimal.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a game. I think the Cardinals are eventually going to find their stride, but people
Will it be a game, though? Will it really be a game?
Well, there's two football
Those
teams.
Cardinal games have not been. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move beyond the Cardinals to yet another primetime game.
Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks Week 14 game. That's Sunday Night Football. So we had the Thursday night, we have the Sunday night. Rams are covering all over that weekly calendar. This could be huge. We don't know, obviously, with no context. We haven't seen how the season's unfolded. I mean, that's 3 out of the 4 games are, primetime games, and they're confidence boosters or killers. I mean, you saw last year it was hard for the Rams to get back on into it. They lost back-to-back primetime games. The Eagles and Bears. So. We've seen it.
They did all right. They responded to that. They did all right.
They did, but it's not. I mean that's gonna be something. But I mean, the reason I say is because Seattle at this point could be right on the Rams' tail, and this could be playoff implications to the max. So, what do you guys think about the Week 14 matchup? This is in LA, of course.
I like it. I'm glad that it's another primetime game. It's interesting that both of the times that the Rams play Seattle are both primetime games. I think it's because they're notoriously good games and they have a lot of hype around them, and it's an intense rivalry. So I like it. And again, it seems that we get kind of in the closing weeks a lot of those NFC West matchups as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, Week 15, the Rams play Dallas, and this is one of those ones where I felt like that would definitely be a primetime game, just because I feel like Dallas, I mean, maybe it's just me, but does Dallas get 9 primetime games, or is it just me?
If they're not in primetime, but here's the good. My grandfather was not a Cowboys fan, and back east, that 4:00 window game, 20, 25 years ago, whenever, that was a game that everybody watched, the national game, and he wanted to see his team because they played normally in that window. And then when, every time he would turn on, these guys are on TV every week. Every week I got to watch these guys. Back when it was Staubach and Danny White.
Oh boy.
But certainly there's a connection between the Cowboys and Rams. They're going to enjoy their nice luau in Hawaii in August. And wow, this is a joint football podcast / Thunder and Lightning ASMR now.
I know. Can you hear it?
That was great. That came through really strong. That's on brand tonight with our what we're talking about. But,
I'm just providing. I summon these storms myself.
Nice. Nice.
I called out to the spirits, and just because we were talking about ASMR, I just wanted to provide some ambiance. So I'm glad that they came through.
You sound like Aubrey Plaza right now.
As we're
That's what I get all the time.
Cowboys. Yeah, we're talking about the Cowboys as we're doing it too, so perfect.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have a rocky relationship with the Cowboys, so this is how I feel inside when I talk about them all the time.
Nice.
I am not shocked the Rams play the Cowboys. They kind of always seem to play each other. I don't know if that has anything to do with the relationship between Kroenke and Jerry Jones, but. I think it'll be a good game. I'm not as impressed with the Cowboys as I think a lot of people are. So I'm not like that convinced it'll be an entertaining game. But, you never know.
In Dallas, good memories. Obviously, rematch of the playoff game last year with the Rams trounced them. And then certainly, memories of that great win 2 years ago in Dallas that really got the McVay era going. So, so I think, Southern California-based Rams fans love seeing the Cowboys, love talking about the Cowboys, and I'm sure they're looking forward to that week.
Yeah, and then right after that, we have kind of a bizarre look. Week 16, the San Francisco 49ers. This is in San Francisco. It is not I don't know what it is. It's a to-be-determined time. It's December.
I bet you it's primetime Saturday. I guarantee that game's going to be the primetime Saturday game.
Yeah, because that's probably going to be for. Well, I don't think it'll be a playoff implication thing for the Rams, maybe to lock up a bye, but.
Go off Jimmy G.
But the 49ers could be, playing to get into the playoffs. So that I hear you.
I think that this shows that the NFL believes that San Francisco is going to light it up this year.
I mean, they have to.
Rightfully so. I mean, they certainly have all the pieces to do that. So, like you said, I think it will be that primetime Saturday game. And again, probably a good one.
Yeah, and then interesting tidbit here on the schedule release video the Rams posted. He did mention, the scheduling guy did mention that the Week 17 game is pending for a primetime slot with the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just to assume if Arizona's good, but I did notice that, and that would be. I know, they used to have a format where it was just the top teams got the top games, and they got all the primetime games, all that. There was one year the Steelers had 8, but then we've kind of switched to this new format that I think works better. You don't want one team littering the entire national schedule, even if they are great. I mean, you kind of want, to kind of mix it up a little bit. But, I mean, with the Rams, they're right up there with the elite tier because, I mean, they were just in the Super Bowl, so rightfully so, they get, the 5 games, the 5 primetime game slots, and that's how the NFL decided to do it. I think they started last year. So there's only 7 teams that got the 5 primetime games, and I believe all of them were reasonable in some regard. And then I saw the Vikings, and I was like, that they don't fit there. And, based on what we saw last year, the NFL must really believe that they're going to turn it around and be a force this year, because the Vikings got 5 primetime games, and I don't know, it was kind of weird, guys. Like, I mean, you see the Patriots, and that makes sense. You see the Rams. The Steelers, a team that's gotten 8 in the past. They've constantly been over 5. They didn't get 5 this year. They were penalized for obviously, not making the playoffs last year. But I find that kind of interesting, that was the case.
They were in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago.
Yeah, they were.
They did play a heck of a primetime game in LA last year. That was really entertaining. So there's 2 reasons.
Yeah, I know Ben Larson thinks that they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So
the Vikings.
Okay. Yeah, I'm joking. Ben is runs Downtown Vikings and is friends with Jake and I. So I was kind of just jokingly teasing him.
I was just like, I mean, he is a Vikings fan, so I wouldn't say never. But the Vikings could very well turn it around, but they're going to have to protect Kirk Cousins, and I don't know. I don't think people are like they're so quick to kind of push away the Packers, but Matt LaFleur, I'm just saying, watch out for them. I'm going to go on the record. I will die on that hill. I think the Packers play the Rams in the NFC title game. I really do.
Oof. Matt LaFleur in his first year. That'd be interesting.
You know why? Because he made the veteran move. He made the smart move. He didn't go with the guy that he knew he probably wanted in Aubrey Pleasant as defensive coordinator. He stuck with the guy that was there, the guy that is really transforming that defense right before our eyes. And that is Mike Pettin. Somebody that has starting, he has head coaching experience in this league. He was a head coach for the Browns, didn't get to pick his quarterback. They forced Johnny Manziel on him, and then they fired him when it didn't work out. He took a year from football. He realized he never wanted to be a head coach again because that's what the Browns did to him. And he was defense coordinator last year for the Packers, and he really started to put together a nice-looking defense. So, this year they move on from Clay Matthews, who goes to the Rams. They move on from Nick Perry. They move on from guys like that. And really, it's going to be interesting with 2 first-round picks due to the trade with the Saints so they could get Marcus Davenport. It'll be interesting to see if they add a couple edge guys there. I think that they're definitely a team to watch, and they went out and they got some pieces. Preston Smith, I believe, is one of them, and they got Zadarius Smith as well. And then there's another guy I'm missing. So they went out and they paid guys. So I can't help but say, I mean, they have Rodgers as well, and Rodgers was injured last year and played the whole season injured. So. We'll see if he's fully healthy. Watch out. I do think that would be the case, but
Jake, my favorite team now is all 32 NFL teams because most likely we're going to have someone we've interviewed this draft season on every team just because there's over 100. And I keep saying that I'm going to be fans of these guys, which is true. I will be fans of them in the NFL. And I might just have to become one of those people who just is like those horrible people who are like, I just like to watch the sport. I don't really have a favorite team. I just am such a fan of the game. Whatever's on, I just love to take it in. And that might be my new life.
Person that doesn't like sports.
Yeah, but I think that's my new life. I think I'm just an NFL fan now. I don't know if, because we talk about these teams, and I do think that the Packers are going to be a lot better than people think. I think you're right. I think if Rodgers is healthy, then people should be very afraid.
Yeah.
So you would pick the Packers to win that division, both of you guys?
No, I don't think they'll win the division. I think they'll get the wild card. I think that the Bears will win the division, and I think the Packers will get that wild card, one of the NFC ones.
My thing is, why would the Bears win the division, though? Like, Last year, I mean, I don't know. I think Nagy takes a step back. I think, obviously Vic Fangio went and got a head coaching job, and they weren't going to fire Nagy so he could take over. They were losing him, but losing him, changing that defense. Adrian Amos went to the Green Bay Packers, so they got worse, and Green Bay got better. They already had Josh Jones. So they have Josh Jones, they have Josh Jackson, they have Jair Alexander. I mean, this team is just getting better. And they have 2 first-round picks, and they have a killer defensive coordinator who I just can't stop raving about. And Matt LaFleur, if he ends up being legit, because, he was under Sean McVay, and, then he went to the Titans. I mean, just watch out. I think with the Lions, I think they're interesting because we don't know how good Patricia can be. They did get Trey Flowers from the Patriots, so that'll be interesting, and they definitely have a higher pick. And, Matthew Stafford coming off a bad year, they got rid of, Jim Bob Cooter as the offensive coordinator, who was really the issue there. So, they could be good. And then, really the Vikings, you can't imagine the Vikings are going to be, the team they were last year, but maybe they are. So, I don't know. I just think the most talented team in that division is the Packers. And now I don't really think it's really close.
Well, I would think the Bears are the most talented team, but I think they have issues.
You don't like their quarterback.
The quarterback. Right, exactly. The quarterback
and the
matchup.
Quarterback's a huge part.
Yeah, the quarterback kind of mismatch is an issue there. But
I mean, you could be the Raiders. Like, how are you ever doing anything in that division? Really? Like
the Raiders?
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
the Broncos are a mess. Are you talking about the Chiefs and the
Chiefs and
Chargers?
the Chargers? Well, yeah, the Broncos are a mess. So,
the Raiders are a mess because the Raiders are a mess. I mean,
yeah, but the Raiders have talent. They're just, they're
a
stockpiling it, and they have tons of picks. But
not using
the Broncos have Elway running their organization, and he only has a Super Bowl ring as a president of football operations, or whatever you want to call him, GM, because of Peyton Manning. I mean, let's be real here. So
and Wade Phillips, yes. So I mean, and guys that were there before he got there. So
they're not getting any better. So the Chargers and the Chiefs, they're top of that conference, right up there with the Patriots, and I mean, we kind of believe the Browns are going to be up there, so maybe the Steelers. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to be the Raiders. I would not want to be the Raiders.
There's
I wouldn't
so
want to
many
be the Broncos
reasons not
either.
to be the Raiders.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's a good point.
So,
Gotcha.
all right. Anybody got any parting thoughts? I think this has been
a great 200th episode, and I just want to say, if these storms take me and I don't make it, I'm glad that I went out on the 200th episode, and we're going out on a high note, and just carry on without me.
Well, but I have 7 interviews tomorrow. What am I going to do without you?
I know that I'm, the blood in the downtown Rams veins, but I think that you'll be fine.
Your demise is very inconveniencing.
I mean, blame these storms. I mean, it's chill, fam. I mean, out of nowhere, just my house started shaking, and I don't know what's going on. It provided a nice little, as Joe mentioned earlier, an ambiance.
Moment, yes.
Yeah, ASMR. I should have just stuck my microphone out of my window and let the rain do its thing. But
yeah, we'll increase the downtown Rams, audience, get a whole new, non-football fan consumer.
Oh
right.
So
totally.
I missed an opportunity there.
I told Jake, we're going to branch into ASMR, and very soon.
You've never said this.
I did.
This is abrupt.
I
the
said this
downtown
off
network
air.
is fully operational and growing and expanding.
It's the Downtown Sports Network ASMR channel called Downtown ASMR.
Oh my
And
lord!
it's just me whispering all of my deepest fears into a microphone.
Oh my God.
And it's thought provoking and anxiety inducing all at the same time. And it's
Jake,
a new genre of podcast.
your assignment, Jake, and before you hit 2,000 or 201, is to go, furrow around the depths of the internet, watch yourself some ASMR videos, and then rewatch the Cowboys one and realize how, cool an idea and interesting and funny that was, and the fact that somehow there was somebody convinced Jerry Jones to do an ASMR. I want to know which member of the Cowboys, listen, which one of those guys listens to it and volunteered to do that video.
I already know. I'm going to send, when we're off air, I'm going to send Jake one of my favorite ASMR videos, and he's going to watch it and he'll get it.
My lord!
There it is. Perfect.
So I got it covered.
Before you go, Jake, just congratulations on 200. I think I was around for 100. I want to thank you for having me back for such a round number. And I'm sure there'll be the way that you guys are interviewing people and doing, this genre in a unique and special and excellent way, especially this time of year. I think, Downtown Rams podcast is just an invaluable, to Rams fans. I don't think you can go into the draft as a Rams fan without having listened, to these episodes and absorbing these interviews and getting to know the draft class the way that you guys have. So just a tremendous job. Congratulations. And I think it's very fitting that, we're a week before the draft, a little more than a week before the draft. And that's when this comes up, and take a moment to celebrate Downtown Rams, and then, focus on the next 200.
Joe, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. Obviously, I still remember when Blaine and I had you on the first time, and you're like, very special guest, and you're like, well, I'm a
Special.
very guest. I actually just special, but I've never forgotten
I was a very
that.
guest.
And
Definitely a guest.
Yeah.
And then I no longer became a guest. Then I was a regular.
Yeah,
So.
and you still are a regular. It's just that I want everyone to know that Joe is welcome on any time. Joe is always welcome, but he is busy. Okay, he is very busy. So, obviously during the year, we'll do our pregame stuff, right? Our breakdowns, and
Yeah, we'll
talk about the
football.
draft. If you want to interview Alexis and I on our draft class, that would be cool.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm planning to go. I missed the opening of OTAs, but I'll be out there a bunch during OTAs and certainly during the draft. Looking forward to starting to see the team put these pieces together for 2019. I mean, it's a fascinating case study. Every year there's a Super Bowl loser, and you see how that team kind of kicks on from there, or does what the Patriots did last year, where they lose the Super Bowl and figure out a way to get over the hump the next year and win the next year. Certainly the Rams would love to do what the Patriots just did.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it before. I'll say it again, Joe. The Rams are going to go 15-1, and they're the Avengers in this story, and they're going to take down Thanos, aka the Patriots, in a Super Bowl rematch, and they're going to end Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's career on a loss and not a 7th Super Bowl. So that's my bold prediction that probably no one heard, because, I mean, if you're still listening, you're the real one. But that's going to do it for this show. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you guys coming on. It's very late. We're in 3 different time zones. It's pretty awesome, honestly, the trifecta here. So, Alexis, of course, thank you. Joe, of course, thank you, and we look forward to just dropping some more interviews, of course, because draft season is not finished. But for all of you guys that were asking for Rams-centric episodes, you got a pretty good one. We broke down the whole schedule, and we had some fun with ASMR, whatever that is. But yeah, you guys take care, and we'll be back fairly soon.